Welcome to Revit 2019 Demo 3. In this demo, we're going to continue off of our past project of Revit 2019 Demo 2. So we're going to go ahead and open that file. You're going to click on Floor Plan Level 1 Plan View, which is just right here, which we're already defaulted to. You're going to notice that the 3D view is still open up in our tabs, and that's fine. What we want to do is go to Architecture Window. So we're going to create a series of windows in this project. You're going to notice that in the Properties box, Fixed is your only choice. And actually, they've added two more in 2019. So you have Window Casement Double and Window Double Hung. We're going to get a variety of windows from the library. It's the same process we used when we got the doors. So we're going to go to Load Family. We're going to go to the Windows folder. So Load Family again, Windows folder. So if I go back up, I want to find Windows. Under the Windows folder, I'm going to look for an arched top with trim, which you'll notice I don't have because in 2019 they changed the name of the windows, but I should be able to find an arched window. So there's an arched top window fixed. We'll go ahead and load that one in. You'll notice that there's a series of different sizes, so we're going to go ahead and pull in the values that we want. So let's go ahead and just pull in a 48 by 54 and a 60 by 80. We'll just pull in two different types. You'll notice that the width and the chord height are also shown, as well as the shoulder height. You'll also notice that the family name is shown along with the types. So select one or more types on the right for each family listed on the left. So we're selecting those two types of the family, and we're going to hit OK. Those two families are loaded in. We now want to go back and load a family and look for a casement 3x3 with trim. We're going to look for a casement triple in this particular example. So there's these three triple windows. So we'll go ahead and open that. Now we want to select probably a longer window. Let's select a 6 foot by 2 foot and 1 inch. So go ahead and do that. That one's going to load in. We're now going to hit Load Family again, and we're going to load a slider with trim. So let's look for a sliding window. So here's a couple sliding. We have a double and a 4. Let's load a double. Type catalog again. So we'll go ahead and select a 60 by 42 and a 3x3. So 36 by 36. We're going to load yet another window family, which is a double hung with trim. So we want to look for double hung. There you go. There's trim already associated to it. So we're going to open that. We'll go ahead and select a 24 by 36 and a 26 by 36. So just two of them. We'll go ahead and overwrite the version in its parameter. I must have already loaded something similar in, and so we just went ahead and loaded that. So those are all open. The 4 additional window families are added to our selector. So we added all 4. They're all in here. We want to note that windows and doors are wall-based families. They can only be placed in a wall. The wall hosts the doors and windows. Hosting is a Revit term. It just means that when I place a window, so I selected this window double hung 30 by 46, it's going to host to that wall. If you delete the wall, the doors and windows will disappear. So I'm going to place a couple windows here, and I'll just illustrate that real quick. If I hit escape twice, delete this wall, the doors and windows are gone. Luckily, you can come up here to the top left and undo. So I can actually undo all the way back up to that window placement. So I just undid the delete as well as the window placements. And now I'm back to where I was. I can hit Control Y, which is just simply hitting this, or Control Z, and it'll undo or redo as necessary. We're going to put 3 double hung windows, 16 by 48 inches, equally spaced on this east wall here. So I'm going to come up here to the window, and I'm going to select a double hung window, and I'm going to look for a 16 by 48, which I do not have. So what I'm going to do is select a window, edit the type. I'm going to duplicate that type and call it 16 inches, which is the width, by the height, and I'm going to hit OK. You'll notice that that changes the value. Now I want to adjust the width to be 16 inches, and I want to adjust the height to be 48 inches, and you'll notice that these are updating. I just hit Tab to exit out of that line, much like as if you were in Excel, and then I'm going to hit OK. Now I have a 16-inch by 48-inch window type. So I'm going to go in and place 3 windows, and you'll notice that they're placed in there. I didn't check tag on placement, so to test your knowledge of the box selection, you're going to want to left click to right click to highlight those windows and delete them, and we'll go ahead and replace them. So I'll select the window from the tab Architecture, choose the 16 by 48, and choose tag on placement. So I'm going to place that, and that. Now you'll notice that if I place a window this way, the tag's going to be there, and if I flip it, it's not going to pull the tag. You can drag that tag over and align it to the other tags, and you're all squared away. So I'm going to delete that one out. That was just as an example, deleting that window out. And now what we want to do is make sure that we ignore the blue temporary dimensions while we're doing that, and escape twice to exit the window command. You'll notice that they all include a window tag. You'll also notice they are not equally spaced. The double blue arrows should be facing outside, much similar to the walls. So they're all outside. You want to pick on the north exterior wall, and you'll note that once you pick that north wall, you'll note that the Modify Walls tab that appears on the pull downs. So Modify Walls. You can adjust the properties here, and you can see that the location line is set to the center line. That's because that's how you drew the wall. So go ahead and hit cancel and escape. I just wanted to show that to note that that's how that's occurring. We're now going to go to the Annotate tab. So when we go up to Annotate, you're going to select an aligned dimension. Do you see the green line in the center of the wall? It's actually a blue line on my screen, but that blue line is the center point of that wall. Notice that it's set to wall center line. If I set this to wall faces, I'll be able to snap to the wall faces. If I want an interior stud, I can tab select to select that next piece. That's all because that's how we drew that wall. Notice the box above that says prefer wall center lines. So if I hit align and it's preferred to wall center lines, you'll just notice that that's associated because that's how we originally drew those walls. Notice that the exterior of the wall is selected as you move your mouse over it. So as I go out with the wall center line, currently it's selecting the center line. If I select wall faces, it's going to select the wall face. So what we want to do is we want to left select on the top horizontal wall, and we want to highlight the center of each window. So I'm just clicking through. I have my wall faces set. I'm going to select that exterior wall and click out in space. Now what I can do is I can equalize these dimensions. So I can toggle the dimension equally. When I do that, they are now spaced equally along this wall. So do you see these blue dimensions? The blue dimensions no longer are there. They're permanent black dimensions, and they can be locked and unlocked. You can see the uneven sizes between the windows prior to this equal size being locked. Now they're unlocked, meaning I can move a window and it'll adjust those. But I can then hit that equal button and it'll go back. So we've dimensioned the entire wall by selecting on the top horizontal wall and then the bottom horizontal wall and sliding our mouse to the right to place the dimension, and you'll see the overall size. Now what we want to do is we want to lock those. Now when we lock these, it's going to constrain it so that if I move this value, I'm going to have an error. And that's just because I want to lock in those dimensions. But I actually don't want to lock in these dimensions. I want to leave them equal. And that way if I drag this wall, they'll pull together at equal distances. It's knowing that you want those equally spaced based on how that wall is drawn. So we're going to undo just a couple times to get it back to where it was. And we're going to go ahead and go to the east elevation by selecting east in the browser. And you'll notice I have my 3 windows. Zooming to see the trim on the windows, I'm using the middle mouse button to zoom in and see them. We're going to type in SD, and we're going to note that there's a shaded mode. I can type HL as well, and it'll go back to hidden line. That's important to understand when you're trying to toggle and see how things are drawn. It's also important to understand the detail level of the view that you're in. Notice that when I'm on course, none of the interior framing of that window is being illustrated. But when I hit it again, it's now being shown. Those panes of glass and that framing between those panes of glass is being shown. So we're going to go ahead and turn that back to course for now. One thing I want to show you are the shortcuts. So we're going to go up to the Revit bar up top. We're going to hit File. Yours is going to show a giant Revit button. That's why I was clicking on this one up here. Mine does not show that. That's due to, remember, 2019.2. So I just hit Project Home. You're going to have a giant button up here rather than 3 different buttons. That Revit button is strictly hitting File. You're then going to go down to Options, and when you're in Options, I want you to go to User Interface, and in User Interface, you're going to hit Keyboard Shortcuts. Under Keyboard Shortcuts, you're going to see a plethora of shortcuts that you can choose from, and you can customize any of these. I don't suggest doing that as you're learning Revit, but you are more than willing or welcome to do that once we've gone through the entire book. So we'll go ahead and exit out of these. We're now going to change a window type. So let's say you wanted the middle window on the east wall to be a fixed 36-inch by 48-inch instead of the double hung window you already placed. You can select that window and select a 36 by 48-inch fixed window. So 36 by 48. And now that's drawn in. You'll also note when you go back to level 1 that the window and the tag has changed on this view. That's important to know because that's eventually going to be referenced by your schedules. Left select again on that window and change the head height to be 8 feet. So we're going to adjust this to 8 feet. We're going to hit apply. Place 2 more of those windows on the north wall. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click this window and create similar. We're then going to place 2 windows on this north wall. You'll notice that it's maintained the tag on placement and it's placed my windows accordingly. Now we want to continue on by noticing the instance properties. Just that one 36 by 48 window and the other 36 by 48 windows would not change. So in this particular instance, the window head height is set at 8 feet. In this particular instance, it's at 7 feet. So I can adjust these to be 9 feet, and that is an instance-based parameter, meaning this instance of the window that's now gone because I set it beyond the scope of the view range is 9 feet. I can also set that down to 6 feet, and you'll notice that the view is different. That's why this is being illustrated differently. That's important to understand. Now you'll also know that aside from the properties that were instance-based, we can edit the type of those properties. I just edited the type of the floor plan, but what you want to do is select a window and edit the type of that window. All of the 36 by 48 windows would change if we edited the head height from within the type catalog of that type window. In this particular case, if I selected all of these, so if I selected one and said select all instances visible in view, it's going to select all 3, and the head height is showing up as blank. That's because there's multiple sizes assigned. I could then change that to 6 feet, and all of them will reflect to show at 6 feet. Let's say we want to make the window taller, but not one of the default sizes. How about a 42-inch by 66-inch, which is not a default size? When you left select on a window in the center of the east wall, this is kind of our test subject, you're going to hit Properties, which is here. So we're in the Properties section. You're going to edit the type. You're going to duplicate that, much like we did when we didn't see a size that existed. And we're going to associate that size to change the height to 66 inches. Oh, I want to cancel out of this first. I want to change this height to 66 inches and this width to 42 inches. One thing to note is that the type didn't change, but it updated the value for every window. That can be critically wrong because now you've punched in the height wrong and you've punched in the width wrong. So what we want to actually do is associate the height back to the 48 inches that it was, because it's width times height, and we want to associate the width back to 36 inches like it was. So I'm going to hit apply. I now want to duplicate this and create a 66 inch by 42 inch window. And now I can set that height to 66 inches and that width to 42 inches. So we're going to hit OK. And now just that value changes, and notice that this mark value didn't update on these because we only edited this particular type or this particular family. We want to change the dimensions in the edit type box only when we're creating new types. That's important to understand. If I associate, I can't change the width inside of here under the properties. I can only change it in the types. So we want to create a new one. So we're going to we fixed that mistake, and we went back into the type properties of the window and we set it normally. We duplicated the window and we called it the correct value, and now you notice that that had fixed the size. We also notice that the tag was updated. It's important that you don't change the preset family sizes that are loaded for Windows, and that you make your own by the above technique, cloning and renaming. You don't want to mess with the default sizes. The consequences of not doing this correctly will create a series of windows that don't accurately depict what you're trying to draw, and therefore it'll cause catastrophic failures. So we want to view the south elevation. So we're going to go to the south elevation, and we're going to then go back to level 1 just to kind of see what's happened. Nothing's placed on the south elevation. So we're going to go to Architecture, Window. We're going to unselect Tag on Placement on the option bar. And now we want to put an arch-topped 30 by 60 inch window in. Now we didn't initially load a 30 by 60 inch, so we're going to select a 40 by 54. We're going to edit that type and duplicate it, and we're going to place a 30 inch by 60 inch window. We're creating it first. We're then adjusting the width to be reflective of the window that we want it to be. So the width and the rough width. We'll go ahead and set the rough width. Or sorry, we'll go ahead and set the height of the window, which is not valid at this point. So we're going to hit OK. It was at 4 feet. We're going to scroll down. I'm checking my properties as to why this height value is locked down. And I'm not quite sure at this point in time. So I'm going to adjust the shoulder height because I believe the cord height is restricting that parameter from being changed. This is a reporting parameter. So I'm going to change the shoulder height. This window is a little bit complicated for this lecture, but the reason for this is that basically the shoulder height parameter and the cord height parameter are reporting to the height parameter. So if I change 4 to 1 or to 5, it's going to report through the height parameter. Now that parameter is being fed from the family. I wouldn't have created the family this way, and I'm actually surprised for out-of-the-box content that this was created this way. Generally, it allows you to adjust width and height. But since I know that I want this to be 60 inches, I can type in 60 inches for the shoulder height, which is 5 feet, but I want to subtract 6 inches so that it's 4 foot 6 inches and that it reports correctly at that 5 feet. So I'm going to hit apply and hit OK. And now that I have my 30 by 60 inch with trim on the front right wall, I'm going to place it right here. Notice the window is not tagged. That's because I didn't actually tag on placement. But if I go to the south elevation again, I can go to annotate and tag by category. And I can turn this leader value off in my display options and tag the center of the window. When I go back to level 1, the window's not tagged. That's okay, because I can tag the window here as well. I can also move that location of that tag. So we clicked on the window and we noticed that the tag is now on the elevation view. We've also noticed that we've tagged by category in the plan view. Occasionally you'll want to tag your windows on the elevation view instead of the floor plan view, and Revit allows you to do this. That's because you're modifying different views to show different values. Do you see the tag number on the elevation view for the window that we just created? When we went back to level 1, we tagged the same window and we noticed that the same tag is the same number. So again, all the information that you're putting into Revit is in a database. It is all being stored for use later in our schedules and other views and etc. So now we're going to move into plan regions and clerestory windows. You may run into a situation where you want to see a higher window than the cut plane will see. If you raise the cut plane, you will lose all your other windows. So here's the workaround. Place a fixed window, 16 by 24. So we're going to go to Architecture Window, Fixed, 16 by 24. I'm going to go ahead and place that window on the south front wall. We're going to turn Tag on Placement on. We're going to place it, and we see it. We're going to go to Properties and set the sill height of that window. This is the properties. Sill height of the window to 7 feet, which would make the head height 9 feet. So we want to make sure we do that on the correct window. So we're going to set this to 7 feet, and it's now set to 9 feet. So what that essentially has done is made that window invisible. But if we show our south elevation view by double clicking, if you triple click this or click in just the right spot, you can rename the elevation. You just want to single click that elevation that you're in. You'll now notice that the window is set and visible. It's just not visible in the level 1 view. The reason for this is that each level on your floor plan have what are called view ranges. And we'll get into these in more depth later, but there's a guideline here that they've added more recently, I believe in Revit 2018, that kind of gives you a key and a description as to why things look the way that they look. So we're going to change the cut plane offset from 4 feet to 8 feet. So we want to set the 8 feet cut plane. Notice that the top clip plane is set incorrectly, so we actually want to set the top to 9 feet. We then hit apply. Hit OK, and you'll notice we can now see the window. The problem is it's making all of our other windows hidden, and we don't want to hide the other windows. So I'm going to undo that, and you'll notice it goes back to this. And so now we want to change the cut plane back from 8 feet to 4 feet, which is what it was originally. So the top from 9 foot to 7 foot 6, and it didn't work. So it didn't actually cut correctly. So when we continue on, the solution is called a plan region. So we're going to go up to View, and we're going to go into Plan Views, and we're going to create a plan region. In this region, we're going to select Rectangle up here, and you can highlight what each of these buttons are so that you can see them. And we're going to draw roughly a rectangle right around where that particular window was. We're going to edit the view range, and we're going to change the cut plane from 4 foot to 8 feet, and the top to 9 feet, just like we did originally, because we knew that that was correct. And we're going to hit apply and OK. Now what we want to do is hit the check mark, because the check mark locks it in. And once we've done that, you'll now notice we can see that window as well as seeing our other windows. That's very important. You can modify the plan view with these drag arrows to fit around the size of the window. And the reason you want to do that is because if there's a window next to this window that you don't want to be shown at a lower height or a higher height, then the plan view eliminates touching that. So you have learned how to use temporary dimensions to control design intent, equally space. You've created a new size object by duplicating and cloning another, and you created a plan region in this exercise. So go ahead and save what you have now as demo file revit2019demo3. So we're going to save as project revit demo3. Save.